Hello, Internet. It's time for another Wednesday's Serial. This week, we have something a little special. It's lined up, and what I have is an all-female superhero cast to tell you about. Also, all DC. There was another book, full disclosure, it was that Captain Marvel event starting up. That's a Captain Marvel crossover with the Avengers. Whatever that means, as she is an Avenger. I just, over the free comic book weekend, picked up all of the issues of the run, and I have not fully caught up, but I am loving the series so far. In far and away, this is the best female character that's been done at Marvel in a long while and handled in a certain way. And there's a lot of female characters in it, but it's played very well, and it's just a great comic. It just happens to be female centric, and I realize that's not just happens to be, but the way it's written, it's played off very well. The art in that book goes from interesting to incredibly well executed to can't we have one of those other people back, please? But it's been a great run, and I want to talk about it more. I'm just not there yet, and as I'm reading through, this Avengers tie-in book is essentially the next issue, and I just don't want to ruin it for myself, so I'll get there. But our first book is dealing with Batgirl versus the Ventriloquist, which is very much our A-plot, and it's interesting because it's very well done. If you're looking for great ways to implement horror beats into a superhero comic, this issue pulls them off very well, letting your imagination run at certain points to make things infinitely creepier, showing certain angles and then certain shocks that set up a villainous character but also leave you mortified and kind of confuses the rules, as this is still in the Bat universe, and whereas magic and all these things are possible, usually rules need to be established, and how the puppet's doing what it's doing is interesting. What is interesting, though, kind of from a feminist reading in counterpoint to this issue, is that the ventriloquist is a female character based off of another male character. It's a surrogate character, and Batgirl is very much the same thing, and I don't want to say it loses any of its punch, but knowing that on a certain level that these are female interpretations but were originally male characters rather than just being characters on their own right is something that stays with you, I guess, if you're aware of it. But great issue, well done. The art works amazingly, and this is a little bit of a change up. What's also really interesting is we have this B-plot which takes all the events dealing with Barbara's brother and whatnot and leads us to something where now Commissioner Gordon is very dead set against Batgirl. What I'm hoping will be explored, but I'm not necessarily sure that can, given all the complexities of all the different books, is how Gordon's going to rationalize this wanting to hunt down Batgirl when she's very much part of the Bat family, and he clearly has very close ties to Batman. How is that going to tie in? I'd be very curious on how that line's going to be played, and I feel like could almost be a weakness to this book if it's not addressed in some manner. Now, that can't be considered a weakness of the book, as they haven't had even a chance to get there. But it would be an interesting wrinkle to see, and I'm looking forward to that. But this issue, if you're looking for a great nightmare, read this right before you go to bed. Batwoman 20, and the suspense ramps. Now, Batwoman's been working with the DEO for her own reasons that set her apart from the Bat family to begin with. And Bones has revealed that he has her sister, and as a quick aside to that, I'm assuming everyone's read Elegy, and if you haven't, go do so over pretty much anything else that can be recommended to you. Elegy is a powerhouse of showing what can be done with comics when art is combined with a slightly different kind of take on how to write a book, but mostly the layouts make it something that is very unique. But her sister in there, the villain, it is very much someone, she constantly speaks as Alice from Alice in Wonderland. And in here, there's a moment where she's lucid, and the minute that the fear that she's going to be put back to where she's from, or where she was rather in prison before, you can see the fear snap on, and and more than just to her voice and the word bubble changing with it, but a bit about her posture changes, and she slips back into that role, into that insanity. And Kate wants this for family, wants to get her out, so Bones makes a deal. If you get Batman's secret identity, you get your family and you can get out. And now here we are, and this is really interesting in play with what's been happening with Batman, and Batman Inc., where clearly Batman's tied to Bruce Wayne. How much are they going to be playing that? Again, you get to this weird meta level because there's all these different books that have all these different angles, and how do you account for all that? I don't know. But here in this book, it's interesting because whereas Batwoman clearly is very much a surrogate character, like I was saying before with Batgirl, it's played in a way where the character is stronger for that association because they've addressed it and they've made it something special on its own. And yes, on some level, yes, no matter what you do, you can't get away from the fact that it is Batwoman. But in reading this character and understanding that this book has an aesthetic, a tone, and a character, and a roster all its own, but it does play in that Gotham area, it is very much its own powerful book, and right now the suspense is really driving it, and it's great to have a book that is really suspense and kind of a bit more superhero spy-like in agencies, and seeing people marginalizing whether or not they're heroes is questionable, but they're trying to do the right thing, but they're just coming from a completely different place. It's definitely one of the stronger things to be coming out of the 52, especially as we're seeing books kind of slip by the wayside and a lot of stuff go away. This is a book that, whereas it's not always the greatest book, it's always something that's moving forward and doing its own thing and continuing to be a great comic in its own right. Wonder Woman 20. After the last issue, it looked like we really had wrapped up a story arc. In truth, this is just going to keep going, and that's okay. It felt like the art took a dip this issue, but it worked and got better as the issue went on. We're seeing Wonder Woman here protect a baby, and I saw an interesting criticism of the series earlier today on Twitter, where someone stated that this book isn't really about Wonder Woman, despite this larger cast. This larger cast isn't doing things to, like, show different aspects of Deanna or anything. They're just there to tell a story, and Deanna's just part of the story. I disagree to a certain amount. They do kind of show, in a way, that she's now a god, or on that level with these characters. And there's some certain smaller things, and Lennox is definitely a reflection in some ways. Having Orion there also brings in a lot of interesting elements and ideas just from the simple fact of him being a new god and his attitude and how he's brought in. But it is true that this is all very slight compared to very deeper comparisons, and I think that's fine. I don't think every superhero comic always constantly needs to always be about the character. We can't have every consistent, 500 plus issues in some ways reflect and show on the character. You can't have that level of craft in serial storytelling all the time, or at least not that level of craft to that aspect. And I find that interesting because people want their books to be about the character. And this is very much Wonder Woman's take, but she's very much on the ground. And this is still, in a lot of ways, her story because it's her army, but they're protecting this new idea, this baby, who obviously can't be quite a fully realized character as much as a MacGuffin in a lot of respects as it is a baby in a high fantasy story. That being said, I mean, the story's moving along, and this book, issue to issue, seems to have more craft and more ideas and certain ideas and certain, like, aspects of myth held in every issue. And to that, I feel it's a much better crafted book than a lot of other comics. So, whereas one aspect may not be as strong, I don't think you can necessarily hold that against the book because it's Wonder Woman. And I think that's one of the problems that's befallen so many Wonder Woman books. They always try to bring back Wonder Woman. What's she about? What's her thing? What's this? What's that? She's a superhero. She's supposed to protect people and have fun, action-y adventures. That's what's happening here with a lot of ideas of myth and whatnot being brought in. And if that's not something you're looking for, that's fine. The book is clearly not for everyone, but for the people following along, they're getting a hell of a ride, and they're getting something issue to issue that's worth it. Whereas to a lot of people, I imagine this would read better in a trade. I feel every issue has something that is central to it, and then the adventure continues, and it's not even written so much in an A, B, C plot as much as a main characters kind of diverge, and those plots kind of go, and cliffhangers are here and there, so when Wonder Woman finishes a fight, someone else is starting one, and it's just going to kind of keep climbing, and the action ramps up. And I think that is a great way to do a book and really capitalizes on what you can do with a comic that you couldn't really do so well with other mediums. Whereas this book doesn't take advantage of the page as well as, like, say, a Batwoman or whatever. It's very much there. So as far as, you know, you're going to get from a DC superhero comic, Wonder Woman, of all of these, sticks out, is doing its own thing, and it's going well. So hey, it's not a steadfast rule, but, you know, women that are superheroes seem to be making some great books right now, so whether or not the creators are there or not, it's really cool right now that there's at least some characters like that, and it's kind of interesting to see that DC gets some flack for it, but they're there, even if they're tied mostly to Batman, so is most every book there. So yeah, but let me know who your favorite female superhero is, or your favorite female comic book character. Love to hear it. Comments down below, like, subscribe, and I will hit you guys soon with another comic review.